All right, I think we're live. Thursday Night Live. I think last time it was Sunday Night Live. Sometimes it's Tuesday Night Live. Tonight is Thursday Night Live with Zach Ferenbaugh, Hunting Public. Zach, we'll give people a few minutes to get on here, but I know we will also have people who watch the replay. I've already heard from people like, hey, man, I got to work or I'm doing this. Can I watch the replay? So while we're kind of letting that populate, for those who may not know you, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself as a hunter, as a person, THP, any direction you want to go there. Just give us a little intro into Zach.
All right. Well, I'm Zach. I hunt, we hunt, make videos for the hunting public. I grew up in Ohio and I live in Colorado now. In between Ohio and Colorado, I lived in Iowa for like 5 years. Just recently became a Colorado resident, but I've been coming out here for a long time. Some of my family moved out here. My aunt and uncle moved out here like 13 years ago now, I think. And through them, I met my girlfriend, and then I've been dating her for like 4 years. So I've been coming out here for about that long, but officially moved out here and became like a resident. I guess this is my first fall of being a technical resident. But I grew up like hunting, small game first, my grandpa, and then got into deer, turkey, and like, I think I was on my first deer hunts when I was like 6 years old.
Yeah. So you got in early.
Yeah. When my grandpa and my dad, both my grandpas and my dad, like really, or they were into it always. And I did a lot of shooting with my grandpa on my mom's side, and that definitely influenced me getting into it. And then, I spent a ton of time hunting through high school and in college, and somewhere in college, I kind of hit this like weird wall where I was having a lot of fun turkey hunting, and I felt like I was getting better at that, and I was like learning new things all the time. But with deer, I was kind of like stagnant, and I just ended up, when I moved to Iowa, just was like, I'm going to only hunt public land forever, for all things. I'd been turkey hunting public, and when I did that, man, it just really has changed it for me. And then to take it a step further, I started hunting on the ground for deer, and
and I want to talk about that because that's kind of what I'm all in on this year. And so, Zach, are you familiar with the term fanboy?
Yeah.
So I think we have a room full of fanboys. So let's look at some of the comments. Alex Sarver, he says you're the most known hunter on the face of the earth.
I clicked comments. Sorry, I didn't know that I could click that. So,
and then let's see here. Logan says best hair in the industry, which that's hard to argue with. Dan Infall, I told you he was supposed to come on last week, and we had some technical difficulties. But Dan used to have some luscious locks too. So, and you got like the curl. His was more straight. I don't know. Maybe it's.
My brother's is straight. My brother's is like the same length, but it's straight and dark. It's like
there you go. Yeah. Well, I told you I was a teacher, and things shut down, and so I just went a long time without getting a haircut. And finally, my wife gave me an ultimatum. So I was like, I guess I'm not going to be like Zach, And it was getting long, but I had to cut it short. So, guys, if you're watching, we appreciate you being here. I know you were here for Zach, and we have lots of questions, and we'll try to get through those. But what I'd really love is let us know where you're watching from. Zach's from Colorado right now. I thought you were in Iowa. I just kind of assumed that, I guess.
Moved out of there. No, it's time to do something different.
And I know that Harry is watching from New York. Of course, we got a lot of Kentuckians. And so anyway, let us know where you're watching from. And then if you don't care, share this on your page. If you have a group, share it in the group. And then hit us all the comments, the likes, the questions. Zach can see the questions. I told him, hey, jump in if you want to. If you see one like, hey, Aaron is better than you or something, you can just ignore it. So
I didn't even know anybody was commenting on here. I was like, for some reason it was.
You can see the comments though, right?
Now I can.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
I was sitting there talking about myself, and then I realized everybody's on here. So what's up, everybody? It's cool to see everybody, like where everybody's from.
Yeah. So I've seen two guys from New York. That's Tennessee, Kentucky, of course, Arkansas. So a lot of folks on here to talk whitetail deer hunting, not just whitetail deer hunting, aggressive whitetail deer hunting, mobile hunting, ground hunting. So Zach, let's start with this. Mobile hunting seems like it's just a really big push lately. A lot of people wanting to go mobile. If me, I cannot sit still for that long. I just can't. My brain can't do it. My body can't do it. I want to move, and so I try to be mobile. What is your definition of mobile hunting? I mean, obviously you're moving, but define that on your terms.
I think that for me, it just is, if at any point I feel like I need to move, just moving and like not being tied to like a setup or a tree, a specific tree or something. Like I don't even really like anymore, getting up into a tree to set up. Like that just keeps phasing further and further away from like what I like to do, just because it's such a commitment even to do that. And it's one of those things like it's not like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If it's what you like to do, it's obviously successful.
Right. Yeah.
I've been doing it for forever. But what I do kind of have a problem with is like everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but people putting it on people that is what you have to do. Like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be. It's like, man, you can do whatever you want out there. There's more than one way to do it. And I think, it just adds a whole element of fun to me. And I think if, you want something new out of your experience out there, you can do anything you want to do. If you want to, like, I don't know, take off running through a bedding area grunting, it probably will work sometimes.
At some point you're gonna get one. Yeah,
at some point you're gonna piss a buck off and he's gonna probably come in. So it's like, I guess.
Yeah, here's the truth. On opening day, opening weekend here in Kentucky, September 4th, people are going to be trying to get a velvet buck. You know how that's very popular. People come from all over to Kentucky to do that. Mm-hmm. And that Saturday when it opens, someone's going to kill a buck from the ground. Someone's going to kill one from a ladder stand, from a climbing stand, from a saddle. It's just going to from the same stand they've hunted for 20 years. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's like the saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to kill a buck. So it's preference. And my preference is it's just boring. I mean, people are going to really think I'm terrible, but it's just boring to me to sit there and wait. But now, some people sit there, they don't move, they don't pick up their phone, they don't open a snack, and they sit there all day. And they'll also kill big bucks.
Yeah, and I think in some conditions, I still do that sometimes. It just depends on what the conditions are, and but I would say ultimately I'm always mobile until there's something that really makes me feel like I need to be in this spot, and there's no other strategy.
Yeah.
And I've gotten better. It's just one of those things. Like the more I do it, there's days I'm like, there's no way we're gonna kill a deer. But then, all of a sudden things start to fall into place, and you start to understand what's going on in that area. And I think, to me, that's what mobile hunting. That's the benefit of it, is you just start to like see all these different areas, and you get to, get a bunch of samples of what a lot of sign is, and then you can go hunt that sign. And you can hunt. You can there's just so many different ways, and there's so many different variables, I guess, that being mobile, I think it just keeps you in the game where the hottest action is all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like hunting is a sport that we want to see more numbers, right? We want to see more people doing it, and I feel like as I'm 34. How old are you, Zach?
28.
28. So I feel like as kind of our generation and the one before us, we're used to a lot of kids are used to travel ball, they're used to video games, and it's more conducive to the movement, you know. And I feel like that's going to be something that's bigger, and it's why it's important for guys like you to kind of show us the ropes. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of guys do. I know the whitetail adrenaline guys, they're very mobile, and though they're still, you know, they're like cutting edge mobile.
Just found this stick in my hair, by the way.
Oh, nice. Who knows what's in there? Honestly, like you might find, whatever, a release in there that you've left while you sleep. But it's just I think it's important that we offer, as we try to bring in new hunters, it's important that we offer these options. Like, hey man, you can do it this way, but if you're going to do it this way, you need to do this. So let's go ahead. Hey guys, if you're watching, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Appreciate Zach's time, and we want to be cognizant of that. We don't want to waste it. So I'm going to ask some of these questions. Don't want to waste your time either. But if you don't mind, go ahead and share this to your profile. Let your friends, I'm sure if you're on here, you have hunting friends, let them see. Let's check out a question right here. We've got a ton. And guys, here's the thing. If we don't answer your question on the show, then we'll kind of try to go back and answer it in text. So here's a good question from Caleb. He says, at what point or situation would you say you hunt one spot multiple times, and how many would you say is too many times? So and we'll just say, of course, on public land, because that's what you do.
I mean, it depends on where you're at and what your I guess what the habitat and the terrain is, and the deer density plays a big part in that. I know some of my friends that hunt during bow season up in the Northeast, they'll sit in a spot for an entire week if they think it's the right spot.
Yeah.
And I think that in that situation, like for example, buddies I'm talking about are hunting New Hampshire a lot, and they'll sit in one spot for, as many days as they feel like. And if they're seeing, smaller bucks or something or whatever that they don't want to shoot, they'll, it just keeps giving them confidence. But, for me, and most of the hunting situations I've been in, I don't really like to hunt a spot more than like probably 2 times. And even at that, I usually end up adjusting it. If I'm in, like, let's say I'm in a spot and I see a bunch of deer moving around, and I notice there's this like one spot that I can see that they're just hitting at a lot, more consistently than where I'm at, I may just adjust a little bit. I like to keep moving around, a decent amount, just because I don't like hitting that same area over and over again, because I think deer really quickly start to pattern people, like more frequently than we even like to believe sometimes. It's like there's just a lot of times, I think, where I guess if I was just going to say a rule, though, for most guys, unless you're in those really, really low deer density areas and, it's difficult to find concentrations of deer, I would say I just would never hunt anything more than maybe twice.
Yeah. Is there a time? Josh Wilson kind of followed up and said, how long do you stay in a spot? Is there a time? So if you're hunting it, is that like twice in a weekend, or is that like 2 different weekends?
I would say, like, let's say I think the spot, again, that depends on, so it's a very
situational. Oh yeah. I mean, I know there's no perfect answer, but let's say a made up scenario.
I'll give a couple scenarios here. Sure. So like, let's say I am sitting over, in this area where I know deer bedding, and I'm seeing a bunch of does, and there's bucks cruising through there, nudging those does around. There's just bucks moving through, but I'm not necessarily seeing or getting a shot at what I want, but there's like deer in there thick and they're moving. I would just keep hunting it until I don't see them anymore. And I, like, if I do see one, like I'm thinking like November 12th, when there's probably a hot doe somewhere close and like things are getting wild in that spot. Like, I'll just keep during the rut. I don't really worry about spooking deer at all, honestly. I'm just trying to get eyes on a big buck.
What about early season, when they're still kind of in that summer pattern? That's what we're going to have in Kentucky in just a few weeks.
It's just kind of the same deal. It's like, if I see a bunch of bucks, I'm just going to keep hunting it, because as much as I can, as long as I got, conditions and wind that I feel confident getting in there. I don't like, if I know they're there, I don't like waiting for tomorrow. I think that's just one thing that, it kind of falls into the like category of things that somehow became, you can't do that. It's like,
yeah,
don't hunt the same, don't hunt the same spot, or don't bump deer, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, if I know I saw some big bucks and they're in there and I don't get them day one and I feel confident that I got out of there clean, I'll go back for day two. If I see them again and they're not there, like, back out,
right,
slip out and try not. And the third, I would go back a third time, but it's like, I got to be confident that I'm not blowing them out of there and like letting them know too much of what my strategy is, because then they'll definitely move and do something different. But if that's the case, they're probably not that far. That's the other thing. It's like, I'm willing to just like go into a spot, be close, move in, inch in, and then like, if I don't find them the next time, I might go 400 yards deeper into the public and I'll find them. I mean, it's happened to me like quite a bit. It's happened to Jake and Ted and Aaron and Greg too. Like,
yeah.
if sometimes you just keep on them, like they're not really leaving completely. They may switch bedding areas, but
how concerned are you with, and someone asked about bumping deer, how concerned are you with bumping them when you're going in, or is it kind of a risk reward kind of deal?
I mean, I definitely don't want to bump them.
Right.
You bump them, and I'd hope I see it.
Right.
I see it. It really, I mean, we've done some pretty crazy hunts that we've directly bumped deer.
Yeah. And then go back and, what, next day or
sometimes in the day, like the buck I shot with my friend Ben in Ohio, we bumped him. Ben got a really good look at him. And I got a look at him once I saw him going down the hill. I watched where he went. We went down, we looked at some tracks. We basically made a game plan of like, okay, if he's not on this ridge, but we just bumped him off of, where would he go based off the direction he went,
right,
off the conditions that we have, based off the food sources that are present. And we like looped around him, got the wind in our favor, kind of spent the whole day eliminating areas where we thought he could have been, but ultimately we were looping around to get to where we thought he went. And ended up shooting him with a gun at 40 yards. Like, it was, it was awesome. And same thing, Jake and Ted a couple of years ago in October, bumped 2 big bucks, and they watched them run away, watched them run out of sight. And they just, that same day, moved up, spotted them bedding, like staging up to bed, watched them bed down, and then stalked in and had a failed stalk, but got within both of them. So like, as far as bumping them, if you can get eyes on them, like if I'm bumping a deer and I can't see, I will take off like full
sprint.
I'm like 100% of the time. If you're not sprinting after a deer that you just saw, like, I don't know, then
you don't want it back.
And it's too safe. He's already got you, or he or she, and it's like, if I don't know, I want to know. And I'm like, it's hilarious. I'll like full on just be like as fast as I can go running, just like that, as soon as I hear that crashing sound, because I want to know what it is.
So we've got a ton of questions, and feel free to jump in there. I've seen videos of you sprinting after deer, and it's always fun. You're a little faster than I am, so I have to be a little quicker on my feet. But we've got a lot of questions about arrow setup. I think it was last week on the Meteor podcast, they had Ed Ashby on there talking about grains and FOCs, a lot of things. I'm like, man, I've just never thought about this as much as he is. And then I think Ranch Fairy on YouTube, like these are things that are kind of blowing up right now, kind of popular. So are you going to that single bevel, broadhead, heavier grain? What's your setup going to be this year? Are you leaning that way? Are you sticking with what you've always done, or what?
I've always preferred a fixed blade broadhead. If I'm being completely honest, I just don't think mechanical broadheads are worth a darn.
Yeah. A lot of mixed opinions,
I've shot them. I mean, yeah, and I'm sure I'm gonna upset some folks, but I don't mean to.
Right? Yeah.
By all means, if you really feel confident in that, I don't want you to like switch just based off of one person. Like, make your own decision on it by all means. But it's just one of these deals. Like, in my experience, they out of the box, they're not very sharp, and typically, most people shoot them because they fly like a field tip, and that is true in my experience.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
pop them out of the box, fly like a field tip, but they're not really built that well. The quality of them is just kind of always, every time I've seen somebody shoot a deer, and like back when we worked at Midwest Whitetail, which is what we did before
Right.
THP, we got tons and tons and tons and tons of footage because we edited. We had a big pro staff and we edited all their footage.
Right.
And we would just see time and time again, like deflection off ribs and like broadheads coming out completely chewed up on the other end of the deer, and not a lot of pass throughs. And it kind of gets to that point where you're like, man, our experiences even were bad. And I only ever used them on 2 or 3 bucks that I shot, and I just had bad deflection every time. I have it on video so I could see the deflection. So before Midwest, I worked at Midwest Whitetail, I'd always shot a slick trick, and I always had a pass through, and I always had, good luck with that. So it had always just preferred that. Same with my dad. He either shot thunderheads or slick tricks. And like, I was influenced by my dad bow hunting.
Yeah, of course.
So, that's just what we always used. And he was kind of didn't really even let me use mechanicals for long, and then I tried them, had bad luck with them, went back to slick tricks in 2019.
Yeah.
And then last year I started using a single bevel. And then this year I plan on doing the same thing. It's just one of those things, like, to me, penetration. And if you spend time like tinkering with your bow, which I'm currently like just trying to perfect my arrow flight.
Right.
Been shooting all summer, just like still trying to get that, get broadheads on and everything, try to get everything tinkered around with till it's flying good. But it's like, to me, getting good penetration, like hunting off the ground, to get yourself in really close quarters with some weird angles, like, a quarter.
So basically the fix is more forgiving, I guess.
Yeah, like, and I'm talking to the point where, like, if you do anything, I will recommend this. Do anything, just put a fixed blade on. Like, I've watched too many videos of things going wrong, and like, I've straight up watched a 10-ring shot bounce off a rib and the guy not find the deer.
Yeah, that's devastating.
Yeah, so like, you don't want, it's like, even the old tale of like, you hit him perfect, it doesn't matter. It's like, most of the time it doesn't matter.
Right. But
like,
that one time, yeah,
it's crazy. And I don't know. I'm not to start an argument on it by any means, because like, again, there's some people have had great success with them, and that's great. I just have had bad success, and I've seen a lot of video of bad stuff, and I don't know, just not my deal.
Yeah.
I'd rather just be confident that I'm going to be able to, like, I'm talking too with the single bevel, not necessarily with just a slick trick or something. I wouldn't feel as confident. I didn't do it with those arrows, but like a 1/4-2 shot at 10 yards on the ground, like, I'll just put it right on his shoulder, like right on the point.
Not worry about it.
Probably just going to break him right in half. So like, I feel good about that. And I feel like I get myself in those situations more than I do like a 60-yard shot. I've never taken a shot of maybe 35 deer hunting, 30 and in. So it's like, for the most part, that I'm worried about that penetration versus like, launching an arrow super fast to 60 yards,
Right. Well, when you're trying to get as close as you can to bedding areas and you're mobile on the ground, sometimes you have to be ready to shoot in an instant. You know what I mean? Like, you're not sitting there waiting on the deer to turn completely broadside. So you don't know what kind of angle you're going to get. You might have a tight window, deflections off of twigs, branches, whatever. So yeah, I totally get that. So do you have have you gone to a heavier arrow?
Yeah, my arrow is heavier now. I was shooting a full metal jacket at like 4, I don't even know. It was right under 500, and now I'm like 550 or 5, or right now, no, I'm sorry. Right now I'm 570.
Yeah.
So my total arrow.
I'm hearing a lot of guys going between like the maybe 550, 600, or 5 to 550 range. Just friends of mine have kind of increased that way. So I saw you. It looked like you're kind of checking out the comments there. Do you see a question there you're going to pick out, or?
Here's one. Caleb asked another question here. This is the first one that
Caleb's got this is like a layered question. Caleb, it's one question per comment. Caleb, come on, man. Like that's like, I'm just kidding. Caleb's a buddy of mine. It's all good.
Do you see a difference in bedding on an Oxbow if the river is deep, shallow, a lot of traffic, secluded? How would you approach and on what wind? Also, on the bedding escape, do you see any travel bedding on the opposite side of the river? Let me think here.
So if you're hunting the Oxbow, is it possible that you see the deer in the Oxbow, but he's still bedding across the river? Kentucky's, I don't know if you know this, we have the most navigable water in all the country. Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
And so a lot of our WMAs have rivers that run through them, which are, it's a great place to start, if nothing else. So a lot of, and I think you guys have really popularized, it's kind of tough to say, hunting Oxbows. And so, that's a good question.
Yeah. So I think that I've been thinking about the depth one a lot. I do think that on a river bed, those deer typically want to be by a crossing. I'm not saying they're going to be right on the crossing, but they like to lay there and monitor other deer, and they like to have an escape. Like if the river's super, super deep, they'll still be there, but like, I do really find my experience that deer they want to be able to cross that river if they're going to bed really tight to it, if they're going to bed right up against it. But when they can cross it easily, it may not look like it, but if they can cross it easily, they'll bed right along the river. As far as one that's got heavy traffic, I don't really hunt ones that have heavy traffic. So, I'm always trying to find a secluded one. As far as the wind, I think I tend to see and jump the most bucks along rivers when the wind is blowing from land to river.
Okay. That makes sense.
Not limited
access areas and everything. Yeah.
I just feel like they know that they can, a lot of times they can see or hear something crossing that water most of the time. And then also on the bedding escape, a lot of times, I guess, just that final part of the question, a lot of times you are seeing a crossing there. So there's deer usually on both sides of the river.
Yeah.
The best river spots I've ever hunted are just like literally deer plowing the river, crossing nonstop. Like they just don't care. This is what they do all the time. And like, I think when you're on a really big river, it's really deep that a deer would have to straight swim across. I haven't hunted a ton of those, but I wouldn't focus. If that was the case, I would focus more on finding a shallow bend of the river where things really trickle out. Or another thing that I've found, and this would be like a really big scale river, when like the river floods, where there's sloughs and where there's dry ground. So basically you've got a river channel, but then this is like floodplain. If there's stuff that's always, even when it floods up, there's still high ground in there. That's the type of stuff I would focus on more than like right up against the big river where they don't have as easy of an escape. Like I don't think they want to swim, 200 yards across the river.
Right.
I could be wrong. You never know. It's just I would just keep scouting it and just see if they're there, see if you can bump them or whatever.
And kind of I'm sorry, were you getting ready to add to that?
I just actually just saw a question that had something to do with steep terrain and thermals from Alex.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to segue into, and I couldn't find it. But someone asked, how do thermals play into morning versus evening and your approach there? So that kind of, going from wind to thermal. So kind of tell us your approach.
I really like how thermals work, and they can work.
Oh, here it is. Okay, right here. You can probably see it on your screen.
Yep. So
I think Alex might be wearing a THP hoodie in that photo, by the way. So I don't know. I saw him in one picture with one. So there you go.
So I really like the way that the thermals can work in your advantage, and I kind of think it's just from doing it a lot. It's kind of, I don't want to say that it's easy. It's just once you you do it enough and you see examples and you see how defined the wind is on a hillside, you can really use it to your advantage. And it really helped when I started elk hunting. But basically, if you're getting sun on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
the thermals are going to go up. So if that hillside that you're on is getting sun, you're generally going to get a pull up. And then you can start to base that. Then you take the prevailing wind and you just say, okay, let's say I'm facing north right now.
All right.
The north face or the prevailing northerly wind, and it's straight north, but it's light. And we're on a east and west facing ridge. Is this correct? Let me think here. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah. No. Let's do we'll just say it's morning. We're on a ridge facing north facing or north prevailing wind. Sorry, bear with me.
No, you're good. You're good. We get it. We know what you're saying.
So now the ridge is running north and south. So I've got an east facing hillside on my right. That wind is going to just kind of go up off that east facing hillside, and then the north wind will drift it that
take it away. Right.
So on the other side, though, it may take that a little bit longer because that hillside's not heated up. It may kind of drift more down in a way, down and behind you.
Yeah.
So sunny hillside warming up is going to bring that thermal up, and you can almost use that to the advantage. I've hunted places right on a spine ridge with that same exact setup with a northeast wind, and that east facing hillside's warming up, and that wind just drifts right over and no deer even smell you, even sitting on the ground, not even in an elevated position. Just got it to go right over that western facing ridge because it just kind of sails up and out of there. And I mean, do that all the time now. So, I mean, really just focus on where that sun is warming and cooling the ground, and the thermals will drop or go up based off that. And then you just use that prevailing wind to just adjust minor details. So on the flip side, then, if the sun is setting, this is where things kind of get weird a little bit, maybe, because you're going to get the switch within 1 hour of hunting, kind of prime time, and why deer tend to move and take advantage of this. So let's say you're in that same exact spot and the sun is going down on your left to the west, and the sun's still shining on the hill. But then as soon as the sun sets and it goes down, that wind's now going to have been going up and over, I guess, to all of a sudden it's sinking fast. And if you're dropping milkweed and stuff, you're going to see that. And you can even feel it. Right when the sun sets, you feel this different air hit your face.
Right.
If you're not anticipating that, the deer are going to beat you on it. I had it happen last year. I thought that I was going to pull it off, and I was above the deer, and I got
started to pull down.
And I heard a buck. I was with my buddy Keith. We were in Ohio. We heard a buck, just the classic buck walk. Heard him stop. There was rubs and scrapes all in front of us. Thought we were in the perfect spot, and all of a sudden, boom, he took off running. It was the thermals just started. They had been going up and out, but then right when the sun set, they sucked down. So, that's the most basic way. I did a podcast with Jeff Sturgis about that at one point. It's somewhere in our podcast. Pretty much talked about it the whole time. So,
well, I think it's something too. I mean, Kentucky is, at least a large part of the state is hill country. And you have to really take that into account as far as, because you're either going to hunt from below them or hunt above them. So you really have to take that into account. So I mean, I think that's a great explanation. I've seen videos of you guys where you're like, you're talking, you pull up an Onyx app and you show where you guys are and you're going to be here. And I'm like, gosh, they're close. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you get in that intersection, kind of like you were saying, where it's going to pull up. But I'm like, man, they're tinkering right on the edge, like right on the border of they're going to bust the deer or they're going to be perfect.
I like even stalking. I like to go in on a crosswind because, like, if you got to wind, like deer, a lot of times, especially when they're stationary, they're just gonna like look. If the wind's blowing this way, they're gonna look with the wind at their back because they know they're
Right.
covered. They're covered here.
Yeah.
So when they're bedded, a lot of times they're gonna be bedded looking straight downwind. And if you're trying to approach them that way, like they're looking right at you. So I would prefer to come in this way because it's a lot harder to see your hand moving over here than it is moving over here, you know. I saw a sign or a question here.
Sure, go for it.
Mike asked, "Do you worry about bears and how does their presence affect deer hunting when you're in areas they inhabit?"
Yeah, Colorado probably bigger. We have bears in Kentucky, but I mean, I've seen little chihuahuas run them off. I'm not, they're pretty skittish.
I guess it really depends. I'm actually really prepping for grizzly country, hopefully in the next year or two.
Yeah.
I'm definitely like take those seriously, but as far as black bears, my approach to a black bear would be I would like when I've seen them quite a bit hunting. I like to watch them and let them do their thing, but as soon as they get too close, I'm getting real mean with them. Like I'm screaming and I'm like making sure they know I'm there. And I think for the most part with black bears, as long as you don't let them get way close, like if you start screaming and raising hell, like they're gonna be afraid of you.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience,
with a black bear, don't baby it. Like just get mad at them.
Yeah,
they're gonna run.
We, where I'm from in Eastern Kentucky, it's saturated. We have so many black bears there. It's just exploded. Honestly, the population have the last 5 years, I guess. But man, when they see, if they feel like the human is getting close, they're gone. Like they can be in a dumpster just ravaging Subway and McDonald's, but if you get too close, they're up and they're back up the ridge. So black bears, I'm not worried about now. Being out there in grizzly country, I'd be a little cautious. I mean, that's I wouldn't mess with them. I've been watching. Do you watch the show Alone on History Channel?
I watched it some. I don't watch it consistently, but I've watched
this last season. We had a guy from Kentucky on there last season, but this past season I've not got to watch it all. But like, there's every episode. There's grizzlies, sow, and cubs, and I'm like, dude, I'm out. I'm hitting that button. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, they're nothing to mess with. If you ever get a chance, YouTube where the grizzly chases the elk down
yeah, we shared that last year on our page. It was crazy. It was just surreal to watch. Like, gosh, elk is a big animal.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions here. When's Zach coming to Kentucky? How does he like hunting Kentucky? Have you been to Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky? So, without, of course, the hunts you've done in Kentucky don't reveal anything. So, but what are your thoughts on Kentucky? You're looking to get back? I mean, we kind of talked about this before we came on, but just some brief notes.
We did well turkey hunting there in Kentucky. My friend Ben, Colin, and I hunted together, and we did well there. And we had a really good time. Hunted there probably about a week. I was telling John before we started, my friends and my grandparents and stuff still live up in Ohio, so I'm close. It's always on the radar.
Yeah,
I could always make the move over there and hunt it, and I plan to at some point.
You've only turkey hunted in Kentucky, right?
But I've only turkey hunted it.
Yeah.
And, the other guys deer hunted it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Ted got a really nice buck from Kentucky. I think a 10 point. It was a nice one. Yeah.
Aaron got a buck as well that trip, and it's if I was going to go back and do it again, I would try to. I don't know. I'd probably go later than early season. I I don't have a ton of interest in hunting in early season personally, but I would love
Yeah.
to go there like November on, or late October even on.
Yeah, it's a good time. Kentucky, I mean, we have 100-degree days in September, early September.
Oh,
And it's miserable unless you have a buck that you have on camera, you want a velvet buck. It's better to wait. I'll be out there first day. My brother and I'll be out there, but I totally get the appeal of coming later in the year. So, late October's, through, I guess, third week of November is prime time. So, one thing, I told you we were going to have Dan on last week. And so I was kind of debating with a couple of buddies. I said, Dan says that the rut is not the best time to harvest a mature buck. And they're like, I think he's wrong. And I'm like, well, I'll let you tell him. Like, so, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you, being mobile, because if you're hunting the rut, you're mobile. They're also mobile. The deer are also very mobile. So, how do you approach maybe early season versus rut versus like a late season? Is there a change, or do you just kind of keep to the same principles?
It just depends so much on where I'm at, but generally at this point, early in the season, when it's warm, usually early in the season, I'm just hunting Western type stuff. Like this year, I'm hunting New Mexico for what'll probably be mule deer.
Yeah.
It's actually a fork antler deer tag, so that's kind of cool.
I didn't know that exists. Yeah.
They have a bunch of different deer in New Mexico, so that's where I'm going, but probably end up being mule deer. But even if I was in hunting whitetails in a similar type of terrain, I guess that open dry country, it's just early in the season, spending time first thing in the morning, like looking for where I can glass up deer. If I don't glass up deer early in the season, like, and this is where things get real weird and people think that I'm completely full of it, but like I'll just straight up walk around, try to spook a big one.
Yeah,
because
that works.
The thing is early in the season like that, like if I had that velvet time frame or whatever, and like I wanted to know exactly where one was, it's just like I'm not necessarily walk around like trying to blow the world up, but like still hunt around looking for deer in bedding areas. And if I bump one, he's probably coming back. And I think that the reason for that is because that early in the season, they don't really even expect it. They haven't been seeing it all summer. So it's like,
that's a good point.
But then as soon as they go past somebody's tree stand and they smell like, wait, they're in here now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where
game changes.
People make a habit of going into the same spot, hunting the same area. So it's like, wait, that's bad. It's on. I got to head for the hills. It's like,
exactly.
I just think that early in the season, and depending, it depends. It does depend on how thick everything is and whatever. But it's like, if I were to get to a point, like that's what we did in Nebraska a couple of years ago, and it paid off. We shot a buck, and that was September 20th. So
yeah.
It just really depends, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like asking these questions, every hunt is different, So it's really, unless we give you like a specific scenario. I mean, you've given great information, thermals and how you approach things, but at the end of the day, we can take what you say and apply it, but it's different. It's always different.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's like it's so loose that just walk into the woods and there's nothing really other than that. Like I'm just going into a place and I'm just looking for sign.
Right.
And when you go out there and you see a sign enough, or again and again and again and again in different types of habitat and terrain, you can just start to say, okay, I got pretty good odds here, or I don't have good odds here. And my biggest tip always is like, and why I say it's situational so much. I hate saying that because it's not like directly helping. I try to like give a situation, but the biggest tip is at the end of the day is like you learn those situations by getting experience. So if you're not seeing anything and you're frustrated, like don't be afraid to do something different or go walk walk a piece of property that you've never been to or whatever, and just try to learn something new. Because I mean, it's easy to get caught up in doing the same thing over and over again and thinking, even when you're not having success, continuing to do the same thing. I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've been there. I did it. Like I was kind of getting to this a little bit at the very beginning of this. When I was in college, I kind of got into this like rut of doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I wasn't really doing anything new or anything better. I wasn't learning anything. And I kept being like, I was listening to what I was seeing on TV and everything. And it really just, I kind of got into a rut, and I was doing the same thing so much that I wasn't having fun anymore.
Yeah.
Why I
That
started
happens. Just burnout.
burnout. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was just like sitting, and I didn't like it. So,
I got a friend that fishes bass tournaments, and he says he gets caught fishing memories,
Yeah.
things that worked in the past. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Something works a few times, you're like, oh, I've got the key. And then it changes. You're like, gosh, why didn't that work? And then the next time, and that's when you experience that burnout. You've had success, you go through a slump, and it's like, gosh, but hunters, we have to adjust. I mean, anything you do, you have to adjust and adapt. And so when you approach, I mean, you guys hunt public land, and we've had some people that kind of hit on this. How much do you like e-scouting on Onyx are you doing? And then weighing that versus, okay, the first day I'm here, this is what I've seen, but this is what I saw on Onyx, and you know what I mean? So how is that kind of the combination of that work for you?
It's funny. I do e-scout. I don't want to make it. I mean, I spend a weird amount of time on maps, but like,
Yeah,
I don't get like, it basically is like a time passing thing. And it's also,
right. I feel that.
it's also just like helping me learn certain areas. What's that?
It's fun, it's like,
I do enjoy it. It's kind of crazy how much you can learn about an area, and you can feel confident when you get there about like where you're driving around to and everything. But
yeah,
at this point, I would say I'm spending a lot more time looking at the places I plan on elk hunting.
right.
And that's kind of been the case for the last few years. A place with, I don't know, I guess most whitetail and turkey stuff at this point. I don't spend as much time really e-scouting, because I also don't want to get like too locked in on a place with those two things. Because, with elk, for example, I'm looking at access points. I'm looking at the same old things. I'm looking at distance. I'm looking at how long it's going to take. And, just studying that over and over and over again really helps me learn that stuff. But like for whitetail, it's so easy to cover ground that it's like, I mean, I don't get too caught up in looking at it until I'm there. And then I can really start to pay attention. Like every night in my tent, you'll find me looking at my map, making a game plan for the next day. So,
one thing I hear about you guys a lot, and is you guys make deer hunting or any hunting you're doing, but deer hunting is what most people like to watch. You make deer hunting seem relatable to everyone. It's not like it's a picture of you in a blind and you're holding up your, what kind of bow you're using or minerals you know what I mean? It's not a 30-minute advertisement. And so you guys make it relatable. And so those people that, they have full-time jobs, they don't get to hunt as much as they want. They may have a 3-day weekend, Friday through Saturday, and they're going to a piece of public land. If that's you, are you spending Friday just scouting and Saturday, Sunday hunting? Or, how does that, are you hunting and scouting at the same time? Like how would you approach that for someone that has a minimal amount of time and they kind of have to do both?
I was actually doing a different podcast today, and this same exact question came up. It's like, but it was even more like confined to the situation that I was presented. Was like 2 hours. 2 hours on a Saturday morning. Like what am I going to do? And I was thinking about it, and it's like, really, when I was in that situation, because I was in that situation at one point, I was in
Yeah, of
school,
course.
work, and everything, and it's like I would do a lot more. Like if I was a resident, in a place that I never left, and I only hunted,
Right.
a handful of weekends, what I would do personally is to maximize time. I would spend a lot of time driving around, looking at where people are hunting. If it's even if it's in like straight up never taken any vacation to go hunting, like it's only weekends. It's like if it's November 6th and it's Wednesday and I got 25 minutes of daylight left, maybe even if the sun is just setting, I'm gonna go hit some public land pull offs, see where people are hunting, see if I can see some deer, check for tracks crossing the road. Just doing a lot more of that. I'm not a big trail camera guy, so that's not really a factor for me.
Yeah.
I would just spend more time trying to figure out what hunters are doing and where deer are moving, where I'm just seeing them, and take advantage of that little window that you have, maybe before work, maybe after work, maybe, instead of watching TV when you're rushing home and watching TV, like you take that drive around, do some glassing, whatever. It's just committing more time to that is what would be important to me if that was the situation that I'm in. And like, I also feel that way very strongly about if you've got more time. Like the more time you got, the more time you should spend scouting. And if you've got a 3-day weekend, don't be afraid to hunt, a little bit, and then still do that. Drive around, see where people are at, get a feel for what's going on in the area.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
If you just bury yourself in the woods and get into a setup, like you don't really know big picture stuff, and like that. I guess I don't feel that that's very beneficial.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, it's all about maximizing your time and everything every time out. I mean, I'm sure you agree, you learn something that you can apply to the next time out. So
Oh yeah. Like every experience out there is just like a new chapter, like a new page in like the hunting journal. It's just like, yep.
Yeah.
Like this track means this, or this track could mean this, I guess is more a better thing yet. And I think, I was talking about this earlier today too. It's just, to me, a good hunter is somebody that's curious and always asking themselves why. It doesn't matter if they've been hunting for 25 years and shot more big bucks than anyone I've known, or they are on year 2 and, they missed a doe last year. It's like, if that individual is curious enough to ask themselves questions like, why is this here? Why did I, spook that deer? Why is this track here? Why did that doe cross that road there? Why is this rub line here? If you're asking yourself a question, you're questioning everything you see in the woods, you're going to improve, I promise. But like, if you're just like moping around, you're like, man, I'm not
meandering
anything, and like you just keep doing the same thing, and you're not like saying, you're not paying attention to the fine detail, then your results won't change. And I think that's just like with everything in life. And
it is.
And I relate a lot back to sports, because I love sports, and it's just like, if you got back to, like, you're playing a game of football and you got back into the locker room, and one of the guys that was playing in the game, he's just like, you lost, and he's moping and he's like, man, I'm not saying like, he may be down, but like the next week he's moping and practicing, he won't pick it up. It's like, man, you want the guy on your team that's like, hey, what can we do next week?
Right, exactly.
Those same mistakes, like how in practice this week do we step it up a notch and fix those mistakes that we made that led to a loss, versus sitting there moping and saying, oh, we lost, we shouldn't have lost that game. But like, hey, move on, let's keep moving, because there's got to be
on to the next one, man.
Life, if life was all like, success and no failure, like, I don't know,
we wouldn't be doing this show.
It wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah. Here's the thing: you're going to bump a deer and ruin a hunt. You're going to miss a deer sometime. Things are going to happen, but it's how, like we said earlier, just adapt, move on, and learn from it. So, we're almost out of time here. I don't want to keep you all night. I did get a text from my brother who said, "Man, ask my question." So he said, I'm not going to scroll back up and find it, but it's, you mentioned running through a field with a grunt tube. And he said, what's the craziest thing or like desperate thing you've done that's actually worked out for you? Something that you can think of. Has there been something where you're like, okay, last ditch effort after this buck, here I go, and it worked out?
I mean, I think in general, like the one that I didn't think was going to work out, but ended up just being like so perfect was a buck I shot in 2019 in New York. Like that felt like I was in the right position. And I was moving in on him, and he spooked from a vehicle that was driving down the road. And like I was making my move at that point more aggressive because I could see him. I could see his antler tips sticking up in the grass, and I was staying low, just looking at his antler tips and reading him. And I was looking at him, but I was also picking my next spot. Like, where can I get to that's safe? And like, I kind of have a little check when I'm moving. It's like, where do I have cover? But where can I also draw my bow and move freely for any situation? And I've been picking spots and moving up. And all of a sudden he bounds towards me, and he gets in the same like trail as I'm in. And luckily, as I started seeing him bound, he did those few bounds, and I like saw him do that, and I looked right at my next spot, and I just like dove for it, and I got in there, and this is a good. This is actually the bow that I shot him with. So I tucked down, and I covered my face with my cam and my eyes, like so that I'm not just like So I tucked down like this. And I just kind of let him do his thing. And I knew that he would at some point get concerned about everything. There's too much going on in his head, and I knew he would kind of lose his focus. And I remember being like, I could just draw and shoot him. And that was bad. That was a bad thought. And I kind of collected myself, and I thought, well, if you force it and you mess it up, you're going to regret it.
Right.
Or if you just try to let it play out, see if you can't get drawn in a safe way, then so be it. And I kind of committed to that idea. And he started moving off into the tall grass, and he just he'd do the like look for his doe, and he'd snap back at me. He'd look back, and then like on the second or whatever time that he did that, I just he was starting to bury himself in that tall grass, and I just drew the bow low. And then when he turned, like I think it was the third time, he just turned all the way to her, and I literally stood. I was kneeling on my knees. On your knees, And I literally stood up to just like shooting in the yard, like 20 yards.
Awesome.
So, like keeping my cool in that situation is like just one of those things. Like I think that was the craziest thing. I felt like I was gonna stalk right up and shoot him with that doe.
Yeah.
And when he bounded, it threw a wrench in the whole operation.
Yeah.
And it's just like, some ways you could look and say, well, it was lucky that he ran closer, but like I didn't want him to do that at all. Like I was like, now that he's up and
that's not what you want,
I'm like cutting distance fast. And it's like I'm really getting in his grill, and then he bounded like that, and it like went crazy. So I don't know, that was fun. That was really fun.
That's the thing.
That deer worked me up, like you can see it in the video, like about more than anything else has ever.
I don't think I've seen that one actually. I'll have to go back and check it out. Is it New York? You said. I'm glad you said New York, because we have some guys from New York, and they were asking like, when are you going to come to New York? So there you go. Excuse me. So what is what I was going to say first was being aggressive like you are. You still, and that's kind of the paradox, I guess. You still have to let it come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't force it, but you can still be aggressive, and that's kind of a fine line. But what do you think?
Sort of patience,
right? Yeah. So just to kind of wrap this up, mobile hunting, being aggressive. What are maybe 2 or 3 characteristics. I think it was a great point where you said you have the checklist, like you're looking for cover. Where can I draw my bow? Like, do you have 2 or 3 of those tips that are universal?
Yeah.
That people, do you have something like that?
Yeah,
Off your head?
I would say like number one thing, if you're moving, like if you're still hunting, for example, just be honest with yourself. Do you sound like a human?
Yeah.
Try to sound like different animals. I try to sound like deer. I try to sound like turkeys. I try to sound like squirrels. I mean, study those sounds and like try to mimic them. Like before we killed the buck in Ohio with the gun last year, we did the squirrel. Like we legitimately for like 50 yards walked like squirrels, and like it doesn't really show up in the video because it's like it would take too long to show the entire squirrel. But like I have a cadence of like putting my foot on the ground in dry leaves to make it sound like a squirrel and not a human going 1 2 1 2.
Right. Yeah. And that's something people don't think about.
Yeah.
I think that sounds simple, but you just don't. It's the one thing you don't think of.
Yeah. And I mean, sounding like a deer, there's a way to move. Like, if I'm in really dense cover, you can do the 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Right.
Sounds like a deer a little bit more than 1 2 1 2 1 2. Sound like turkeys on the backside of a ridge, scratching, literally bring a mouth call sometimes. If I'm trying to creep up and over a ridge, I may try to sound like turkeys over there as I'm approaching. What's another tip? I think another thing when you're on the ground or being mobile is just knowing where you can draw and practice draw. Like whether you're in a tree or on the ground, practice draw the bow.
Yeah.
Like there's a list that is
right
through the roof of mistakes you can make from not drawing your bow, and it's like
you draw back and you hit something, you're screwed immediately. Like and a lot of times I think people look, whether whatever tree, ground, whatever, you look in front of you, you don't always think about you're behind you. I think that's just natural. But
the other thing with that,
got me before.
The other thing with that too, though, is even in front of you, you think like, oh, I've got this cover, I'm gonna drop and get above it. Well, your arrow sits so much lower than your pins.
Yeah.
That like another classic is like just don't shoot right into something. Like if you got front cover and you're like, bonk. My buddy Ben did that one time. He had a buck. My friend Ben had a buck at 5 yards, and he hit the junk in front of him. And he didn't even, the arrow basically fell off the bow. And I'm not saying that to pick on him. It's just something that I learned because of that mistake. And like, I really pay attention to that now. Now there's tons of mistakes that I make that are silly mistakes too, but like pay attention to the little things, pay attention to shadows, pay attention to like routes you can take that are truly the quietest routes. And
the thing is, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. The mistake you made last weekend that may have messed up your hunt, you don't want to do that again. Learn from it and move on. So all right, anything else, any final thoughts here? I mean, I know everyone's here. If you haven't, guys, if you've not heard of the Hunting Public or Zach here and the crew that he runs with, you got to check them out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. In my opinion, just from the amount of content you put out, informational, entertaining, it's the best going. And so that's why we wanted to have Zach on. And Zach, I think for you personally, we had Aaron on a podcast and it was great. We didn't really do the Facebook Lives at that time. But watching you just bring a lot of joy to it and happiness. And it's like, man, this is a guy I want to hunt with, someone that's happy. They're not moping around. So I appreciate that. And I know everyone else does too.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. We don't want to take off Zach's evening. He just had fixed dinner and he was rushing to the computer. So I don't know if he even got to eat. So we're going to let him go. But Zach, we appreciate you. Kind of plug where people, I kind of did, but are there anything else you guys have going on? New merch, anything you need to plug, go for it.
We've got our website where you can find like all the stuff that we do. You can find, it's just thehuntingpublic.com. So you can find everything there. YouTube is like where we put the most stuff,
Right.
most content up. Instagram, Facebook. We also have our own podcast that I post one every week. I'm like kind of the lead on that, I would say.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy doing those podcasts as well, and got a wide variety of guests and topics and stuff.
And they're just like your videos. I mean, they're fun and entertaining and not boring. You know, a lot of times you get some boring podcasts. You guys do a great job.
Well, cool. I appreciate that. And then, yeah, man. I mean, just we're also. I see a comment on there. Harry said Amazon Prime. We're also on Amazon.
Oh yeah, you are.
I will say, folks reach out sometimes and say, you know, we've been watching Amazon. When are you going to put another Amazon season up? Like, there's way more content on YouTube than there is Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, all kinds of stuff like off-season type topics and stuff like that. But you know.
And I mean, you guys have a series on Onyx. Some of your shirt there. You have, you know, just all kinds of things that are, like you said, off season. They're perfect for right now. And so, what's some? I don't know if you could share this. What's some hunts that you guys have in store that we can look forward to this fall?
So I'll give people like the official game plan here. So this Sunday, I'm gonna go. Maybe you remember him, maybe you don't. Grant McCrabb, he was an intern in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He lives out here in Colorado now, and he drew a pronghorn tag that I'm excited about.
Oh, nice.
Filming him so I'm going to go with him we're thinking at least 5 days while I go home and I edit that. This will kind of give you a little background too of like how there's so much content. It's like, while I go home and I'm editing that stuff the following week, so like the week of August 21st, on Ted and Hayden have pronghorn tags for South Dakota. So those guys will be there. They'll be hunting when I'm creating content from this Colorado hunt.
Yeah.
And then, after that, those guys are going straight to Wyoming. They have some whitetail tags for Wyoming. I'm going to New Mexico. Sounds like at least one other person will probably come with me down to New Mexico, hunt there for about a week, and then give myself some time to come back and work on some of that footage. And then the whole second half of the month, I'm planning on trying to get as much elk hunting in as I can. And then Aaron's going to be doing some elk hunting, or going with a buddy that went with him when he drew his Arizona tag in 2016. He's going like to return the favor.
Right. Yeah.
With his buddy. So we'll be doing quite a bit of elk hunting, and then October rolls around. We're going to really start getting serious about deer. We have South Dakota tags. Some of us, I think 3 of us, me, Jake, and Greg, have South Dakota tags, and I'm extremely excited about that. And then I know in December, Aaron and Ted are planning on doing a Arkansas hunt.
Okay.
And then I personally, past that, don't know exactly the plan. You know, there's going to be Iowa mixed in. We're going to have the hunting or the public land challenge this year. I think we'll be in Indiana.
Oh, cool.
Sometime around
we have some Indiana folks on here, so that's good.
What's that? Oh, Indiana folks. Yeah. So doing some of that, and then so this is like kind of a loose plan, like no promises by any means. I really want to try tracking, and I saw a comment on there earlier about this. I'd love to try some of that in the Northeast. And my friend John Lewis, he lives in New York, and I was like, man, you know, there's so many states up there that, you know, have a pretty good long season and get that snow. It's good for tracking. And the tags are relatively cheap for the most part. It's like, I may just kind of be on call for that and may just pop in somewhere and hunt for a few days or a week or whatever. If we get good weather and can do some tracking, I'd love to give it a try.
Yeah. You know, a lot of states in the East are cheap enough to where if you want to buy a tag on a Monday and hunt the rest of the week, you can. And So that's a big appeal.
I thought about even, or like, well, not thought about it. I'm probably just gonna fly to him.
Yeah.
And then just, ride around with him, hunt with him for a week or so, and then see what happens. I mean,
It'll be a good fall, regardless.
I plan on doing some Ohio stuff like that. I mean, we'll be all over the place, to be honest. Because what's weird about, like I saw a comment like this exact wording is what I mean by this. It's like releasing states for the deer tour. It's like, I mean, if we fill some bags, like we may go more places, we may go less places.
Right.
Like, it gets hard to say, like, we spent, a couple $100 on a tag here, and we got time to go. It's hard to go to another place, but
yeah, right, it is.
But a lot of times on the flip side, it's like, whoa, we filled this tag faster than we thought. Like, let's go here now.
Right, exactly. And you can do that. I mean, you could hit. I mean, just like we're in Kentucky, so I can drive 3 hours. We'll say 4 hours and be in 4 states that are in the top 10 Boone and Crockett. So and they're all around $300 for a non-resident to hunt there. So it's a great location. But Zach, man, I appreciate you. I'm so glad that you were able to do this. We have a lot of people on here that are big fans of you guys. I don't think people realize how much work goes into hunting, and then probably just as long editing. I mean, it's hard work. It is. Oh, yeah. We'll, for us, we'll be lucky to get 4 or 5 good videos for the fall. And I mean, if we hunt in September, that I may not get the first one out to October just because it takes so long. And so, man, much respect for that. But we appreciate you. Thanks for being on here. And hopefully, maybe we can do this again. Maybe we can get back for turkey season or post deer season or whatever. But you have an open invitation, my friend.
Well, I'm down. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks again, everybody. It's been
all right. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. If you've not shared this, I'm sure you have friends that would like to see it. Share it with them, and make sure if you've not checked out the Hunting Public, do that. So, y'all have a good night, and we'll see you sometime next week. I'm not sure, but we'll be here. We'll see you later.